Our topic is about the appendix. Our objectives are to discuss the anatomy, recognize the different patterns of presentation of appendicitis, explain the pathophysiology, interpret and understand the different diagnostic examinations, apply the knowledge, especially during the exposure to actual patients in the hospital, and to be able to diagnose and know the treatment of appendicitis. It's previously a vestigial organ linked to the development and preservation of gut-associated lymphoid tissue in the maintenance of intestinal flora. It develops from the midgut and first appears at 8 weeks of gestation. As the gut rotates immediately, the cecum becomes fixed in the right lower quadrant, thus determining the final position of the appendix. So you can see it's in the right iliac fossa. The base is at the McBurney's point. It is the junction of lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3 of a line joining the umbilicus to the right anterior superior iliac spine. It contains all the histological layers of the colon. You have the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and the serosa. Measures 6 to 9 centimeters. Its blood supply is the appendicular branch of the ileocolic artery. What is the blood supply? Okay, the appendicular branch of the ileocolic artery. Mostly, the position of the appendix is intraperitoneal and retrocecal. It's pelvic in 30% of cases, retroperitoneal in 70%. The appendiceal base can be identified by tracing the convergence of the cecal taenia. So that's how you identify the base. You trace the convergence of the cecal taenia. The pain of appendicitis is first felt in the umbilical region, as both are supplied by the T10 spinal segment. With increasing inflammation, pain is felt in the right iliac fossa due to involvement of the parietal peritoneum of the region, which is sensitive to pain. So your visceral innervation is the superior mesenteric plexus and your vagus nerves. Uncomplicated appendix is when you have acutely inflamed or suppurative or mildly inflamed with or without peritonitis. You have complicated appendicitis if it's gangrenous, perforated, if you have localized purulent collection at the time of operation, if patients present with generalized peritonitis, or they have periappendiceal abscess. Acute appendicitis is one of the most frequent emergent abdominal operations with a lifetime incidence of 8.6 in men and 6.7% in women. The most common cause is luminal obstruction. You can have lymphoid hyperplasia, fecal lift, fibrosis, foreign bodies, sometimes food, parasites, calculi. It can be fruit seeds or sometimes even neoplasia. So you start with the obstruction. There's bacterial overgrowth and increased intraluminal pressure in your appendix. You have impaired venous drainage, which leads to mucosal ischemia. Bacterial translocation occurs, leading to gangrene, and finally intraperitoneal infection. So fecalitis or appendiculitis is the most common cause of the obstruction of the appendiceal lumen. So once you have the obstruction, there's bacterial overgrowth and luminal distension, causing inflammation and increased intraluminal pressure. And you have inhibition of lymphatic and blood flow, which will cause vascular thrombosis and ischemic necrosis, leading to perforation. And it leaks the contents into the omentum and surrounding tissues, causing the different complications of abscess, small bowel obstruction, and peritonitis in some cases. So the most common organisms are your E. coli and your Bacteroides fragilis. So I want to give you a takeoff case. You have KD, a 21-year-old female who came into the clinic with history of abdominal pain. So what do you want to ask the patient? You're going to ask for how long is the abdominal pain, what's the type of pain, the pain score, is it radiating, what are the precipitating or aggravating factors, other associated signs and symptoms. If he has fever, if he has nausea, if he has anorexia. So patient had 5 days abdominal pain, which was crampy with a pain score of 5/10 and associated with nausea. So what pertinent 4 days history of fever and pain localized to the right lower quadrant. So what pertinent history do you want to ask the patient? So You have to ask for the work, if previous hospitalizations, and family history of cancer. You need to extract the history. So you also have to ask if there's migratory pain, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, fever, ileus, diarrhea, small bowel obstruction, or hematuria. So what is important or significant here? The temperature and the heart rate. So how do you do your physical exam? So what is the first thing you should ask the patient when he is now lying down on the examining table? You ask him to flex both his legs. So why do we do this? Is to relax his abdominal muscles, okay? So this is the PE. You have distended abdomen with hypoactive bowel sounds with a direct and rebound tenderness in all quadrants, no masses palpated. The DRE, it's negative. So these are the signs and symptoms for signs for appendicitis. You have focal tenderness with guarding, McBurney's, Robsing sign, Dunphy's, obturator, and Ilyasova sign. We will go through them one by one. Yeah. So when you have pain in the right lower quadrant after release of gentle pressure on the left lower quadrant, that's a Robsing sign. Okay. The Ilyasova sign is pain with flexion of the hip, especially when you have a retrocecal appendix. Obturator sign is pain with internal rotation of the hip if you have a pelvic appendix. And another sign is the Dunphy sign, when you ask the patient to cough and coughing will elicit pain due to abdominal wall movement. Okay. Bloomberg sign, also referred as rebound tenderness. So there's upon deep palpation of the viscera over the suspected inflamed appendix, followed by sudden release of the pressure, causes the severe pain on the site, indicating positive Bloomberg sign or peritonitis. So same side. You also have different scoring systems. We have the Alvarado score. Please know this. It's in your Schwartz book. Now, what diagnostic laboratories do you want to get? What are significant for appendicitis? A leukocytosis of 10,000. Higher leukocytosis is associated with gangrenous and perforated appendicitis. C-reactive protein, bilirubin, procalcitonin. And in women of childbearing age, you get your pregnancy test. And urinalysis is to rule out nephritis, UTI, or pyelonephritis. A negative operation rate is acceptable in less than 10% of male patients and less than 20% of female patients. Imaging is for patients in whom a diagnosis of appendicitis is unclear or who are at risk for operative intervention and general anesthesia, such as pregnant or patients with multiple comorbids. CT scan. So features on a CT scan that suggest appendicitis is enlarged lumen, double wall thickness greater than 6 mm, wall thickening greater than 2 mm, periappendiceal fat stranding, appendiceal wall thickening, and a presence of appendiculis. So you have here on the first slide, you have enlarged appendix. The second slide is an appendiceal wall thickening. Third slide, you have an appendiculis. Fourth slide, you see periappendiceal fat stranding. Excuse me. The ultrasound of the abdomen to include the appendix is usually taken. On the ultrasound, you see an easily compressible appendix less than 5 mm in diameter to rule out appendicitis. In some books, it's less than 6 mm. Ultrasound is cheaper and more readily available than a CT scan and does not expose patients to ionizing radiation. Features that suggest appendicitis is a diameter 6 mm or greater, 6 millimeters or greater. When there's pain with compression, when there's presence of an appendiculis, when there's increased echogenicity of the fat, and you have periappendiceal abscess. MRI is an expensive test and requires significant expertise to perform and interpret, and only recommended in pregnant or pediatric patients. These are your differential diagnosis for your right lower quadrant pain. In a child, you can, the most common is your mesenteric adenitis. In adults, you can have pelvic inflammatory disease, ectopic pregnancy in women, ovarian cyst, endometriosis, or perforated peptic ulcer, torsion of testis, urethral colic, UTI. For the old patients, sometimes they have diverticulitis, intestinal obstruction, or carcinoma of the colon. Management of appendicitis. For uncomplicated appendicitis, appendectomy is preferred. Medical management is not the standard, as 26% of patients required appendectomy within 1 year after medical management, and there is a higher rate of adverse events. And often, patients who recurred presented more frequently with complicated appendicitis when it comes back. Laparoscopic versus open appendectomy, there's shorter length of stay, faster return to work, and lower superficial wound infection rates with your laparoscopic. But for open, you also have shorter operation times and lower intra-abdominal infection rates. And they're actually cheaper. Here in the Philippines, open appendectomy is cheaper. And actually, they have just similar length of stay in the hospital. For complicated appendicitis, you have perforated appendicitis. It's after 24 hours onset. If patients acutely ill and dehydrated, they may require resuscitation. Abscess is usually walled off in the right lower quadrant, but if it's left untreated, it becomes a psoas abscess, liver abscess, fistulas, or pyelophlebitis. So the management of complicated AP, you must resuscitate, give IV antibiotics. Percutaneous image-guided drainage can be done. Operation indicated if there's failure of conservative management and patients with free intraperitoneal perforation. So you do interval appendectomy 6 to 8 weeks. This is still a debate because there's recurrent AP in up to 8.8% of cases, and you sometimes have appendiceal neoplasms. Pre-op preparation, antibiotics 30 to 60 minutes prior to skin incision. You can use cefoxitin or ampicillin, cefazolin plus metronidazole. For patients with beta-lactam allergies, clindamycin and fluoroquinolone, gentamicin or aztreonam. Post-op antibiotics are usually not necessary. For perforated AP, you can give Piptas or cephalosporin and metronidazole, and usually less than 4 days. You give longer duration antibiotic if there is incomplete drainage, if there are persistent catheters, if there are complications from surgery, or uncertain resolution of inflammation. For the operative technique, we go through the McBurney's incision or Rocky Davis incision. The midline lap incision is for perforated appendicitis with phlegmon formation or abscess formation. The appendix, again, is found by tracing the convergence of the Taenia coli. For the operative technique, the stump can be imbricated as Z-stitch or purse string configuration. Alternatively, the stump, the mucosa can be fulgurated or cauterized, skin closure in a layered fashion. And if with significant abscess or contamination, sometimes closure by secondary intention or delayed primary closure has been considered. So this one is identifying the base of the appendix here. And then this is serial ligation of the mesoappendix. Yes, here you ligate the mesoappendix. Then you doubly ligate the base of the appendix before you sever it. And then here it's not commonly done, but sometimes you can do it. You imbricate the stump through the purse string suture here. So in our case, that the sample case, the intraoperative findings showed generalized peritonitis with dilated small intestines and a ruptured appendix. The rest were normal. Okay. So patient was maintained on NPO and IV antibiotics, and dieted was started on the 4th post-op day and shifted to PO meds and improved on the 6th day. So patient follow-up at your clinic on the 10th hospital day. And upon removal of the dressing, you noted erythema, tenderness, and purulent discharge upon suture removals. What are the common post-op complications? Here in this patient, you have your surgical site infection. Usually, it's common in the 5th day post-operatively, so we always check the wound. Sometimes patients present with fever. then you start to suspect SSI postoperatively if patients present with fever post-op. Incidental appendectomy is for children undergoing chemotherapy, for compromised hosts with an unclear physical exam, patients with Crohn's disease with a normal cecum, patients traveling to remote places with no urgent care, or patients undergoing cytoreductive operations for ovarian malignancies. But this is currently not advocated. Special circumstances. Appendicitis in children. 1 in 8 children undergo a workup for the diagnosis of appendicitis. 51 to 100% of infants and young children are most likely to present with perforated disease. Since this population, it's so hard to get a proper history and examine properly. Neonates can also present with abdominal distension and lethargy or irritability. And if it's early appendicitis, you can do laparoscopic appendectomy. But if perforated, antibiotic postoperatively for at least 3 days and preferably 5 days. Non-operative management in children can be done if it's an early presentation, if there's limited inflammation, if there are no appendiculates, and there's no evidence of rupture on imaging. It's effective in up to 92% of cases, but there's a recurrence rate of 22% in 1 year. AP in older adults, there's diminished inflammation in the older population and thus present with perforation or abscess more frequently. There are higher risks for complications because of your pre-morbid conditions, and therefore it's more prudent to obtain definitive diagnostic imaging. The laparoscopic appendectomy is safe and might allow patients to reduce pain and decrease their length of stay in the hospital. AP in pregnancy is usually in the first and second trimesters. They are rare in the antepartum state, but can occur in the postpartum state in geriatric pregnancies, meaning the maternal age is greater than 35 years. They may also present with heartburn, bowel irregularity, flatulence, or a change in bowel habits. The point of maximum tenderness is usually displaced on physical exam. Ultrasound is the preferred imaging modality, although non-visualization of the appendix can occur. The MRI is more sensitive and specific, but it's very expensive. Excuse me. While CT can be performed in pregnancy, the risk of fetal irradiation leads many practitioners to avoid it unless other modalities are inconclusive. The risk of fetal loss with perforation or complicated AP is 36%. It's very high, and there's a negative AP rate of 30% for AP in pregnancy. Laparoscopic appendectomies are safely performed in pregnant patients. There's higher rate of fetal loss, around 7 versus 3%, than open techniques. Lower intra-abdominal pressures, 10 to 12 mmHg during insufflation, has been suggested to reduce early labor during your laparoscopic techniques. For your non-operative management, there are treatment failure rates as high as 25%, and definitely not advised for pregnancy. Stump AP is when there is incompletely excised appendiceal stump, something that's greater than 0.5 centimeter stump length. It's an uncommon complication. Optimal management requires re-excision of the appendiceal base. The diagnosis can be difficult and requires careful assessment of the patient's history, physical exam, and imaging studies. Prior appendectomy should not be an absolute criterion in ruling out acute appendicitis. For appendiceal neoplasms, it occurs in 1% of all appendectomy specimens, predominantly gastroenteropancreatic neuroendocrine tumors, previously called carcinoids. They are indolent but develop nodal or hepatic mets. Lesions less than 1 centimeter, negative AP margin is adequate. Right, hemicolectomy is done for tumors 2 centimeter or larger, or if there is mesenteric invasion, if there are enlarged nodes, or if there are positive or unclear margins. Goblet cell carcinomas. These are adenocarcinoid with adenocarcinoma and neuroendocrine features. They have a worse prognosis than carcinoids, slightly better than adenocarcinoma. If there is no metastatic disease, a right hemicolectomy is appropriate. Adenocarcinoma of the appendix is a rare neoplasm. You have three major histologic subtypes: the mucinous adenocarcinoma, colonic adenocarcinoma, and adenocarcinoma. Most common mode of presentation is acute appendicitis. May present with ascites or palpable mass, or neoplasm may be discovered during an operative procedure for an unrelated cause. The recommended treatment for all patients with adenocarcinoma of the appendix is formal right hemicolectomy. And these have a propensity for early perforation, although they are not clearly associated with a worse prognosis. I want you to read this chapter in your book, since it's just a shorter compared to the other chapters, and it's an easy topic. Okay, thank you.